This is For the Love of Learning, Voices of the Alternative Education Movement. Be inspired by the voices of visionaries, changemakers, and ordinary, extraordinary people who do what they do, all for the love of learning.
This is For the Love of Learning, Voices of the Alternative Education Movement. I'm Lady Liberty, and this is episode number 10. Tonight, we'll be talking to the filmmakers of a delightful independent film called Life Inside Out. Life Inside Out follows the story of a devoted mother and her youngest troubled son as he fumbles his way through adolescence. The story focuses on the duo as they both set out on a journey to find themselves, guided by their passions along the way. They both discover the music inside of them. Perhaps more important, they develop a deep connection to one another, allowing them to play the role of both the life learner and the facilitator. Tonight, we'll be sitting down with the director, co-writer, actor, and advisor whose voice was instrumental in supporting the spirit of community. Also, we will learn how one Los Angeles homeschooling community collaboratively worked behind the scenes as part of the film's crew. This homeschooling community helped with the fundraising efforts, raising over $41,000 to get this film made. We'll be talking about the film, the power of community, learning at any age, and the ability to achieve whatever you set out to achieve. Before we start the conversation, let's take a break and watch the trailer.
What's going on, Shane?
Shane has decided to take this year off, right, honey?
What? When did this happen? What the hell for?
So he practices knitting.
The more food they have to resist, the more people buy. That's the first thing they teach you at the Magical Memories Weekend seminar.
If selling stickers and fun scissors to my friends wasn't my idea of a living hell, I would jump right into your multi-level marketing dream. But it's just not me.
Whatever. Thanks, asshole. Way to help out.
We're just gonna reward this kind of behavior? What are we doing with him, Laura?
Everybody's sure that they know just who I am. What if one day I just suddenly got like tongue pierced or something that no one would ever see unless I wanted them to?
So you write songs?
Yeah, I do. Well, I used to. I quit for a really long time.
But you're back at it. It's never too late.
Ha! Hi, I'm Laura Shaw. I called for a spot.
Does your guitar have a pickup? Okay.
I don't know. I am never gonna do that again.
I don't get it. I mean, you tell me not to quit things.
You quit soccer?
I don't love soccer, Mom.
Okay, so like Faith Hill's just gonna come into the Safeway one day and say, "Hey, hi, how you doing? Want to write a song for me?" I mean, who's gonna want to listen to a song
Written by me?
You have something to say, Laura.
Let's take it slow. Let's make it last.
YouTube.
Call me when you find yourself, and I'll tell you what you want. Yeah, there is no place I'd rather be than right next to you, my dear. This is not the only way. It won't always be so unclear. No,
I mean, it's your song.
That's good. I like that.
I hope everyone's excited. Before we start the conversation, let me first introduce tonight's panel. I'm going to give a brief introduction to each of our panelists, then we'll jump in. Although these introductions are brief, we have more information about each of our panelists on the show notes page located at consciousconsumernetwork.tv. And look for the show notes page for episode number 10. There you will find more extensive information about each of their backgrounds and links to their projects and websites. So let's jump in. First, let's meet Jill. Jill is a visual artist, filmmaker, and mother of 2 girls. Life Inside Out, her directorial debut, won Best Premiere at the Heartland Film Festival in 2013 and has since screened at 20 North American festivals, receiving 15 audience and jury awards along the way. Jill's entire family, including the littlest one, who was only 6 at the time of filming, participated in the making of Life Inside Out. For this, she feels blessed and also grateful that they're still talking to her, since the movie has consumed so much of her life for the past 3 years. She's thrilled that Life Inside Out will be available on DVD very soon, April 21st. So welcome, Jill. So happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having us tonight.
And let's meet Maggie. Maggie is the co-writer and star of Life Inside Out, in which she had the pleasure of acting opposite of her own teenage son, Phineas. Maggie is an actor and writer living in Los Angeles and the mother of 2 teenage children who have been unschooled throughout their lives. Extremely involved as a parent, as her children grew, she decided to return to her love of music and began recording her original material and singing at open mic nights. When her then son, Phineas, was only 13 years old, he began to discover his own gifts as a songwriter, and the idea for Life Inside Out was born. Welcome, Maggie.
Thank you so much. So nice to be here.
We're so happy that you're here tonight.
Thank you. I'm really happy.
And finally, let's meet Julie. Julie is the founder of In the Family Way, a small nonprofit dedicated to helping families thrive, and always has a ready ear for creative projects that may support greater well-being and compassion for family life. Julie teams up with her husband Matthew in both visual art and in family life, and together have raised one much-loved son who is a young filmmaker and living and working in Los Angeles. She has worked in the field of grassroots philanthropy, served as a doula, traveled to sacred and significant historic sites, and holds a master's degree in transformative leadership. Welcome, Julie. We're so happy you're here with us tonight, too.
I'm delighted to be here, ladies. Thanks so much for having us.
You're welcome. Even though the theme of tonight's show is revolving around the film Life Inside Out, the discussion is about so much more. And let's start with you, Jill. Jill, can you share with us first why you were inspired to make this film?
Maggie and I have known each other since our oldest children were babies. We met at a La Leche League meeting and became friends after I begged her to be my friend at the end of the meeting, and she said yes. And that whole time, we both work in the film industry, and we talked for years about making a film. The only thing that we needed, we had all the filmmaker friends, we just needed a script. And Maggie and Lori came up with that script a mere 14 years later. And when I read it, I was so taken with what I thought the major theme of the movie was, which is finding your inner voice and expressing it. And creativity as sort of a transformative state for us. That if you are honoring your own inner creativity, whatever that may be, that it can transform not only your life, but the life of those around you. And I thought that was such an important message. And it's something that as an artist, a visual artist and filmmaker, I try to embody every day. And so to see it laid out beautifully in their script, I was so excited to bring that to life, those themes.
Amazing. And all of us here on this panel, coincidentally, have kids that are, well, teens or older. And this script, the story really spoke to me in such, I mean, I was blubbering like a child when I watched it. I was so moved by the passion that you were able to just tap into and express. Jill, you did such an amazing job on this film. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was aided by the amazing script and the incredible actors. I mean, that was 90% of the job right there. I could just sit and delight in it on the set. So yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome. So why don't we jump over to Maggie, and why don't you share with us a little bit about your journey, which led you to writing this film and eventually starring in it?
Well, given the fact of your subject matter of lifelong learning, really what happened was I have had a series. I am a professional actor, and that's how I make my living. But along the way, I found that I just took up so many activities. You know, for a long time, I was a baker and a cake decorator, and I'm an aerialist. You know, there's always this desire to learn something. And when I was a teenager, I wrote music, and I went back to doing that with the help of some other moms from our homeschool community and Lori, who's my co-writer. I decided after I'd written a bunch of songs and made a CD, actually for my father who was dying, I made it as a gift to him. I decided I needed to go out and do open mic nights to have some exposure. And I just would never find the time to do that. As you know, busy moms, we don't take the time to do those kind of endeavors for ourselves. We always cancel because someone's sick. So I enlisted a group of moms, and we would go together, and I would play guitar for one, and one would sing harmony for me. And Lori was among those women. Lori, who's the co-writer, I know her from a different connection. And we would go and sing together. And lo and behold, as we did this, my son Phineas, who was a kind of a typical moody 12-year-old, 12, 13-year-old, started going along, and at the same time was discovering that he had this amazing gift for writing songs, and it completely transformed him. And sometimes he would come to the open mic nights and he would sing, and it just blew my mind. And that's when the idea for the story came about. So combining the two ideas of how do you make time in your daily life for creativity? How do you find a time amidst all the dishes and the laundry and the jobs that you have to do something creative and that feeds your soul? And then how do you help your children do that? And in fact, if doing that yourself is part of the inspiration for them, in our case, in the movie, if Laura hadn't taken up the guitar again in songwriting, her son Shane may never have known that he had this gift. So it's one in the same. What we do creatively can feed our own children. So that was where the idea came from.
Amazing. And you, as the co-writer of this film, you're also an unschooling mom. So you're very familiar with facilitating and modeling as a mode of supporting education. But what I think was so incredibly deep and fascinating about this particular script is the journey starts off with the mother going through her process of, you know, utilizing the same things, tapping into her passion and following her passion, and found support, not only supporting herself, but really through her relationship with her son. So that's so powerful. That's what touched me to the core. What was it like, Maggie, working with your son?
Well, it was pretty magical. I mean, I was very aware of it every moment, you know, that he was there and that we were getting to do it. I mean, it was really a dream come true just to bring the film to life at all. It was a lifelong dream of mine, really, to make a movie, to write a movie and have it made. And we really set about doing it to make it. And having him there was, well, first of all, it was the easiest acting I've ever done. We didn't know if he actually could really act, so that was a little nerve-wracking, but then he turned out to be so great. And just being able to look in his eyes and you know, you have that connection with your kids that, you know, you can't really create that in any other fashion. So it was an amazing experience. It was really fun.
Wonderful. I mean, I work with my son too, so it just tickles me when I hear that there's that kind of partnership in other people, in other families. It's just so beautiful. Why don't we jump over to Julie? And Julie, can you talk a little bit about your background and share some of the ways you were able to support the women on this panel during their journey?
Yeah. Jill and I have been friends since we were girls. We've met in 8th grade and have been comrades and dear friends ever since, spending many late nights dreaming up various shenanigans and being there for each other through childbearing, through marriages, you know, now my son Quill is 19, and he's actually living in what I like to call Jill's guest house at the brewery. So when Maggie and Lori developed the script, Jill sent it to me to see what I thought of it. And like you, I wept my way through, found it to be such a moving story, and immediately volunteered to help any way I could. And mainly that was just moral support through Jill and Maggie and Lori, who I came to know. I didn't know Lori before, but I've known Maggie since the kids were all little. And I live in New Mexico, but travel frequently to visit friends and family in LA. So our kids have all known each other since they were little. For me, what was most powerful at the time of reading the script was the sense of relationship, the parallel journey between both the mother and the son in the story, and that sense that that as parents and as children, by being true to ourselves and pursuing our creative passions, we really do support, sustain, stimulate each other into growing into the very best version of ourselves that we can become. And that it's really not a one-way story of what parents need to do or should do or even can do to help their children, but it's a two-way dialogue or a family-wide dialogue in which both people grow and mature across time into the very best version of themselves that they can be. And that begins with birth. My own background is that I'm a doula, a licensed and certified doula. I practiced for a number of years. I helped Jill with both her births, which is very treasured memories. But as I was doing my doula work, I discovered really quickly that it was a 24/7 time constraint, and I had a little guy at home who I missed and who missed me. And so I ended up going back to school and getting my master's degree in transformative leadership to really look at creativity, family systems, and how to make leadership happen at home in family and through creative practices together. So the script resonated across the board, and of course my son was a moody youngster at the time I read it too. And I was really touched by the vision that it held out for all of us, that pursuing our dream is something we do together and with joy and as much of a take a chance attitude as possible.
Wow, and I can see how that is the perfect role for this film, because in essence, the film, the theme of the film taps into all of those things that you're talking about. You're talking about creativity and passion. You're talking about family, and you're talking about support, and you're talking about all of those particular things. I want to bring this question to the panel. What were some of the unexpected learning that happened from your perspective? Maybe some aha moments, or epiphanies that you experienced being present, in not only just making the film, but planning for it and all the work that goes into it. And it's not just about the film, mind you. It's about all of it. Maggie, you want to go ahead and take that?
Well, I wanted to add one thing too, that Julie's son was one of the many people who worked on our movie, who came out and just volunteered and was on our crew every single day. And we had an amazing amount of support from our community, including Quill. And that was one of the aha moments and epiphanies I had in the whole experience, was that I've spent a lot of my life trying not to ask for favors, trying to be the one who gives and offers my help, but trying not to ask for anything. And when we found ourselves wanting to make this movie, we found ourselves in a position of having to ask for a lot. We had to ask for financial support from our community and help making our costumes and our props. And every time we turned around, we were asking for something. And the amazing thing I learned was, which I kind of knew intellectually from a nonviolent communication perspective, that when you let people give to you, you give them a gift. But I'd never really let that happen so much. And here we were making this movie, just having people give to us every time we turned around by just saying, this is our dream. We want to make this movie. This is what it's going to take. And people just saying, what can I do to help? So that was an incredible experience and very eye-opening for me of, you know, ask and, you know, people will help you. That was a real lesson and very humbling.
And let me just jump on over to Jill and ask you, how did you start to involve the community as part of the production crew, you know, to make the film? How did you reach out to the homeschooling community, and how were they a part of this film?
Well, it started, I think, with our Kickstarter campaign, because we were determined to make the film and we didn't have any money to do that. So we launched a Kickstarter campaign, and even creating the Kickstarter campaign, we created it with the homeschooling community. We asked kids and adults what their dreams were. We asked kids what they wanted to be, and we asked their parents what they had wanted to be when they were children, and did that dream come true, or did something better or different happen? And then that was one of the little videos that we put on our Kickstarter campaign to get people sort of thinking along the lines of the film, which was listening to your inner voice, going toward that path, dreaming and making it a reality. And so from the very beginning, they were involved. And then when we launched the Kickstarter campaign, that same community contributed and became our green lighters of the film by giving $5, $10, $15. They helped us make the film. So these incredible people. So that was in just the Kickstarter. Once we got the funds raised, then they started helping us in pre-production, making the coat, making the props, making all, you know, cleaning up the house. Like, everybody was there at every phase. One of the homeschooling kids was a PA on the set, a couple actually. Some of the homeschooling kids played extras at the high school and in the club and at a party scene. The parents did as well. So we had all sorts of homeschoolers on screen and behind the screen, behind the camera and in front of the camera, which was just fantastic.
And homeschooling is really about life learning. And I couldn't think of any other way to participate in life, but like creating a film, working on a film really is the best way. Sorry, I have a kid come in frame here. So I'd like to really get into a little bit more of the behind the scenes and the work that went into that. Maybe Maggie, would you like to add something to that?
Well, in terms of the homeschoolers and all the people who helped us, we did have PAs and extras, and moms helped too. We had actors in the movie that I think the first scene we had 3 homeschooling moms and we had a couple more within the cast. So we had a lot of actors. Even at our park day, our homeschool park day, we had kids assembling necklaces later that we gave out at film festivals, including stickers on cards. So it's been a community effort from the beginning. I mean, our house, we shot 7 of the 15 and a half days in our house. So we needed a lot of help transforming that location, and everybody was just on board with that. And the crew, we got the crew, we had a union, it was a union movie. So of course we had a union crew, but then there's a lot of room beyond that for volunteers, of which we even had people who brought donuts to the set and watched our dog while we shot. So it was a big community effort. And I think the fact that Quill, Julie's son, worked on the film, Jill's daughter worked on the film, of course my son, and all the people that Jill mentioned, it was a life learning experience. I know Quill had been in school at the time studying film, but nothing that you can do there compares you to just being on a film set every day, you know, and just learning by doing. It was kind of the message of the movie in every way and behind the scenes.
Yeah, amazing. And how did you deal with the organizational aspects of everything? And, did you make it something other than what it was? I mean, you're working on a film, but this is a community. Were there any issues dealing with the organization?
Well, we had a producer that was a really good line producer. So she organized all the crew calls and who we needed and how many people, et cetera. So she was really great about making sure we had the bodies that we needed to get this film made and make it look good. That was just indispensable. So we didn't have to deal with actually those kinds of logistics. But one thing I did in the production meeting the day before we started shooting is I sat all the heads of the departments down and I said, we're a low budget movie. We're not paying you enough to abuse you. And even if we were, it's just uncool to abuse a crew. And so let's treat each other with respect and love. Let's have a good time. I know there will be problems. There are always problems on film sets, especially low budget film sets. So when there is one, come up, tell me what it is. I don't want to hear whose fault it is. No blame, please. Just tell me what the problem is. And if you have a solution, let me know that too. And if you don't have a solution, we'll figure it out together. And wouldn't you know it, the crew respected that. And we had such a great time. It was so wonderful. Everybody, it was like a family on the set. It was a green crew, you know, although a lot of our crew were professionals. Some of them were moving up in rank for the first time. Some were new people that had never done a film before. And everybody treated each other so well. Long days, exhaustion, you know, it was like a family. It was incredible. I mean, people had grins on their face the entire time, pretty much.
And it's amazing that you talk about facilitating a community of working together and, you know, love. I mean, how often do you hear that on a film crew? It really translated too in the film. There were so many different levels. I mean, we're talking about so many levels deep about learning. We're talking about learning from the production, learning by doing, but the film addresses learning at, you know, as an adult, learning as a child, supporting one another. And yet behind the scenes too, we're talking about a community learning and loving experience. To me, that's a true success. That is the definition of a successful project. I'm so tickled to have this panel here tonight. I'd like to jump over to Julie and ask you if you had some thoughts to share about the whole community aspect and
Thank you. Yeah, Lainey, I wanted to say, just kind of weaving in and out of these themes, Quill joined the Life Inside Out crew as first assistant or second assistant camera, and the filming happened this summer, a summer in between grades for him, and I entirely forget which grades because it turned out to be such a transformative experience that school was over after that for him. And part of the reason, I had never been a huge fan of conventional education, but as a young child, Quill found himself very happy at school and wanted to be there. And so he had these artist parents and anthropological parents who wanted to travel the world with him. And instead, he literally begged us to stay home so he could go to school. And that worked for a long, long time. But as he grew older, school became less and less of a good fit for him. And the summer that he worked on Life Inside Out, he discovered the kind of creative community that he could have if he left school behind and really followed his dream. And Life Inside Out, his experience working with Jill and the whole cast of the whole crew really made him want to take the leap and devote himself to following his own path and schooling himself in his own way. And of course, we were thrilled to see it happen, although by that point, it was very nerve-wracking to make such a big life change. So had it not been for the kind of love and support that he found in that community and through the experience, he wouldn't have made the leap, which he needed to do, and which has been nothing but fantastic for him.
Wow. I wanted to jump in. I was so nervous when Quill decided to make that leap because I really felt like Life Inside Out was this special little movie. I had never been on such a lovely film set before. And I was so afraid that his next experience would be not so great. But instead, he's had some really, really wonderful, incredible experiences since he's been out here working. So I'm relieved and excited for him.
Right, it's been 2 years now, and he moved immediately from Life Inside Out to living and working in Los Angeles under the sheltering wing of Jill, nearby, and made his way into finding work all on his own, is now working full time and really couldn't be happier and couldn't be learning more. And he couldn't be learning more in a better way, as far as I see it.
So not only did you facilitate, Jill, by making this incredible film, you facilitated inspiration by everybody who watches this film. You've also facilitated, individually one human being whose life has changed. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. I want to ask Maggie to share a little bit about her path to rediscovering music. How much of the film is autobiography, and how much of it is fiction? And where do you pull from? You're an actress, but when you're playing a role, if it's really, really close, how do you differentiate, and how do you make it authentic? I'm not an actress, so I don't know any of these answers. Maybe you could share a little bit about that. Also, because you're the co-writer.
So it's definitely a fictional story, but there's an awful lot of truth in it. Of course, the truthful plot of my son. And I would add to Julie's story that, of course, Phineas was experiencing that same life. Phineas was unschooled, or what do they like to say now, consensually schooled. He took classes that he was interested in, and but he followed his passion. But this movie was a real combination for him, and he's gone on to be a full-time band frontman and songwriter and an actor. So this was definitely life imitating art, imitating life. So even it was fictional, it's such a close parallel. The story, even little details that, the plot is fictional, but even little things that we worked in, props and little pictures and stuff. We actually do commentary, Jill and I, during the special features for the DVD. So we talk about a lot of the little secrets behind the script and the story that are sort of based on real life. So, a lot of it, I think all writers take from your real life. There's a moment in the movie where I talk about wanting to have, maybe considering getting my tongue pierced because people all think they know who I am, and I want to have something that shocks people. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And that came from a direct time in my parenting life, or actually it was even before I was married, but someone seemed to think something of me that I was shocked. I was like, that's how you see me? That's not at all how I feel inside. And so that was a direct story from that. So there's a lot of borrowing from life. You have a good moment or a good story in your life, you got to use it. And then as an actor, it's a character, and I play a lot of characters as an actor. I'm often cast very different than I am. And this, of course, was pretty close to who I am in more ways than most. And when you're doing that, the challenge is a different kind of challenge. Instead of the challenge of creating a character, it's more the challenge of being very, very honest and letting yourself just be as true and honest as you can. Now, one of the things that really helped that in this movie making process is because we were an ultra low budget film and filming in our house and we had no trailers and no makeup artists and none of the artificiality of a normal film set. We were literally going from, where's an extension cord to rolling. And it was in our house, so I was often the person who was the source of whatever might be needed at the time. And so even with that huge crew and all the people around, we would just go right into action. So there was no room for anything fake or forced. And it kept it very, very real, which I found very refreshing as an actor. I actually really preferred it to a typical film set where you have a lot of artificiality. So it was, and also acting with my son and acting with, because Lori, I like funny people, and Lori's funny, and we got to be funny, and that was just a pleasure.
Awesome. So Jill, why don't you tell me what was your favorite part of the film?
Oh my gosh, I had so many. We pre-recorded all the music, and I had a really good time being in the recording studios with Maggie and Phineas and sort of directing or facilitating those recordings. So what a pre-record is, for people that don't know, is you record the music beforehand, and then on the set you play it back and the actors simply lip sync. Or they can play and they can sing out loud, but you replace it with the pre-record later on. And it just makes it, for sound quality wise, it's easier to do it that way in a low budget film. And so it was really fun being in the recording studio with Maggie and Phineas. I loved working with my friend Guido, who was the cinematographer. We had been friends since Guido's daughter is our oldest kid's age, and we'd been friends since they were babies. And this was the first time that I worked with Guido, not just being a friend of his, but actually working. And that was super, super fun to work with him and argue over camera angles and visions for scenes and duke it out until we got something that we both really loved. I think we both made each other better. I think filming my favorite scene was when Laura and Shane, Maggie and Phineas, sit at the piano and sing the song that became the title of the movie, the Life Inside Out song, Call Me When You Find Yourself. And it was so magical. It was so magical watching that happen. That was one of the few songs that wasn't pre-recorded. They sang it live on the set. And I was just weeping with joy at how beautiful they were and how beautiful the scene turned out. So I think that was probably my favorite scene of the movie in terms of filming.
There's so much passion in this movie. I can recall very vividly each of the scenes that you're talking about.
I wanted to chime in about the song because all the music in the movie that I sing, I wrote, and everything Phineas sings, he wrote. So that was a pretty unique experience too. People often ask, like, were the songs written for the movie? Well, the movie was written. The songs and the movie were written sort of simultaneously. The songs were written into the movie was written around the songs, and a lot of it was just that stuff that Phineas had already written, which inspired the plot. So it was actually a real symbiotic relationship. One of the songs that I sing at the piano by myself, I know, was a song that I wrote when Phineas was just about 13 and really in that age where kids are off and on through their childhood. You know, they seem at equilibrium and then they go into that disequilibrium phase, and he was in that period. And I wrote that song, and as I wrote that song, I thought, oh, this is a movie. Like, I started to see it. So it was really the song inspiring the movie and then putting the song in the movie. But the fact that we got to use Phineas singing his own songs really added an element that was very special.
Yeah, and actually we have a clip of the first open mic. Do you want to go ahead and set this up for us, Maggie, and we'll take a break and go to that clip?
Sure. Well, if it's the very first scene where I go, I'm trying to avoid going to my sister Lydia's scrapbooking party. She has these multi-level marketing parties, and I have had to sit through several of them. I'm trying to get out of it. Meanwhile, my son has been spared by me, Mom, not to go on the family fishing trip with his dad and his brothers because he's not into fishing or sports. And he stays home, and I decided to take him to this open mic night for which I have gotten a flyer. So we're both escaping our destined fate or what turns out not to be our fate by going to this open mic night. And then I'm not super experienced at this point back to my music full time yet. So it's a bit rocky the first time I play. And I'm singing an old song that I had written when I was a teen before my mother had died and I had stopped playing. So I'm singing one of my old songs and not necessarily too well.
Great. Okay, so let's play that clip and we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Does your guitar have a pickup? No? Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Can I get a quick sound check from you? Okay.
Check.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Laura Shaw, everyone.
Which one is more frightening? I have yet to decide it. Sorry. Which one is more frightening? I have yet to decide it. I hope I make my mind up before I've gone and tried it. To give up what you have in the hope of what might be. To give up what might be. To hold on to what you see. For every road you choose, there's another you pass. You try and choose the one that in the long run's gonna last. But when the road gets rough and you're sure you've chosen wrong, just to tempt your fate. Tempt your fate. Sorry, I'm lost.
It's a D7.
Thank you. There's another comes along. When you taste the lips
Come on, let's go.
That's way too much.
I don't care. Let's just get out of here.
when you taste the lips of the dead. Vengeance, vengeance is mine.
You were good?
I was terrible.
Well, you'll do better next time.
Oh, I am never gonna do that again.
I don't get it. I mean, you tell me not to quit things.
You quit soccer?
I don't love soccer, Mom.
That, for me, that is such a charming scene. I want to jump over to Julie. I know you had some thoughts. You didn't answer what your favorite scene was, and I know you had some thoughts that go a little deeper about this topic. So,
Thanks. Yeah, my favorite scene is actually a very quiet little moment in the film when Laura discovers she's hearing some music coming from Shane's room. And she knocks on his door and kind of peeks in. She's not really sure, is she going to get a shoe thrown at her or what's really going on in there. He hasn't been in the mood to communicate much lately. And he's just quietly there playing music beautifully, which he has managed to teach himself from watching YouTube. And in terms of some of the themes of this show, it happens to be one of my favorite scenes because that's how I experienced my own child's learning. Is so often he would be off doing his thing quietly, and the next thing I knew, suddenly he would have a whole new set of skills or a new project that he's named. He made. He's always had access to his father's workshop. So when Quill was little, he started out constructing wooden toy animals, life-size wooden toy animals. Then he moved to making jewelry. And much like Shane in the movie, one minute you're there making dinner thinking life is going along as it always was. And then suddenly the next moment you discovered your child has not only encountered something that you didn't know he was even interested in, he's suddenly developing a real passion and mastery for it. And he's discovered his own resources for doing that. And there's something so exciting to me about that. And that tender moment, she shuts the door quietly and you can see her excitement, like, yes, this is so great. And that feeling of seeing your child click into his own wisdom, his own passion for learning, his own curiosity or her own curiosity. And really suddenly doing something with that becomes very personal to them and doesn't even have to do with a relationship. And then from there it can become a meeting ground for companionship and more collaborative projects. So for me, one of the essential lessons that has to do with is a lesson that none of us parents more than most of us know, which is that in giving, we receive. And so to me, that sense of creating the space for our child to encounter their wisdom, their passion, and their own capacity for learning, suddenly it comes back to us in the most beautiful way. And And again, that's the theme of the movie that I happen to resonate most with, is how that parallel journey is constantly reflected and supported in its unfolding between those characters. I see it so much about both of them, about actually the relationship itself, rather than one or the other of them.
Yeah, I really feel like the other thing that's so subtle and beautiful about the journey that they're on is that Laura isn't trying to teach Shane anything. She's just tentatively trying to discover herself again and drags him along because he's got nowhere else to be. And so she's an example to him, but she's not even doing it consciously. She's just moving more into herself, and he recognizes that. And the nice thing about the end of that clip, I think, that you just showed, they're walking and she's had a frustrating night, her first time at the first open mic, and she says, I'm never doing that again. And he says, you shouldn't quit. You tell me not to quit. And she says, you quit soccer. And he says, but I don't love soccer, Mom. And he then, what I love about that scene is that right there, he's become her ally and he's become her cheerleader. And it becomes this buddy movie where they're both egging each other on, in a way, very subtly though, through their own journeys. No one's pushing the other. And just by each other's example, they make each other better and more whole, more creative, more focused on their own talents and gifts.
Yeah, I will say that one of the things that always has inspired me a lot as an unschooler, homeschooler, was Sandra Dodd. I went to a workshop once with Sandra Dodd where she talked a lot about strewing and just sort of strewing your life with interesting things, leaving out an interesting book, putting things in the path of your children so that they have to encounter them. And whether they pick it up or not, who knows? But sort of providing these outlets. And I think in the movie, Laura does that sort of somewhat accidentally. She is searching for a way to connect with him, and she doesn't know this is going to be the way. But she sort of inadvertently strews in front of him music, which who knew that he didn't know anything about music aside that he liked to listen to it. So it's a sort of a form of strewing, throwing it out, and then, oh my gosh, that was the thing. And you never really know with kids where it's going to come from.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'd love to get Sandra Dodd on a show and talk about just that. I love when she speaks about strewing. It has given me so many ideas. And to me, that's what world schooling has become. Through travel, the world is strewing for us. But I never made that connection as I watched this film. But what I did notice is the character that you play, Maggie, never went into a place of fear or never went into a place of shame. And in many levels, that's modeling through maturity, because kids will, if they're not supported, could go to that place. And so I think that as a life learner, as an adult learner, we have a little bit more life experience. It doesn't mean we know more. It doesn't mean we're better at anything. It just means we have more experience, not to fade into a place of fear, which stops a lot of people from pursuing their passions. Do you have any similar experiences?
Well, I think this movie is all a testament to that. When you're an actor in this town, or Jill was a professional editor, when you're whatever we all tend to say, oh, someday I'm going to do this. Oh, someday I'm going to write a movie. And I think there's a lot of fear that stops us. What if it doesn't work out? What if it's bad? And so just making the movie itself was getting to an age where the fear wasn't as great as the desire to make it. So the desire was like, look, I had a real feeling of like the clock is ticking. You can't just go through your whole life saying someday I'm going to do this, because time runs out. And you have to put aside your fear and just do it. And what's the worst that can happen? It can be a major disaster and flop. And so what? You'll learn something from that. So the whole experience was overcoming fear. And I love what Jill said about the movie. And I think it is what I love is that Laura and Shane do feed each other. And Laura is sort of fearful. She goes to the open mic and she does it, even though she's scared. and it doesn't go great. And she's thinking of not going back until she realizes that he needs to see her go back. She sees him not fitting in with his friends and not having anything to do. And she thinks, I need to model for him that I'm going back. I'm going to do it again. And so she really does go back just to show him that you can do it, you know? And so he's encouraged her by her being a good mom and saying, like, I can't wimp out. And I think that's important as parents, that we are brave and we walk the walk, you know?
I have to say, as a first-time director, I was scared witless. I had never really been on a set before. My first day on the set of Life Inside Out was my first day on a set. And I had to get over that fear to just direct the movie. And honestly, the first day, I thought Guido hated me at the end of the day because we were arguing with each other. And I realized arguing is his process. That's part of where he gets to the shots he wants to get, is to argue with the director. But I didn't really quite get that until day 2 or 3, that arguing was an artistic, creative process for him. I just thought he thought I was incompetent. But I had to get over my fear every morning, put a smile on my face, walk through the door, and direct that movie like I knew what the heck I was doing. And it kind of worked out. And I wanted to add a story about one of our singers, Xenia. She was on season 1 of The Voice, and Guido shoots The Voice, and that's how we got her to be in our movie. She was one of the semifinalists. When she was on season 1 of The Voice, she was addled by stage fright. You could see her shaking on national TV, shaking as she sang. And so when we hired her, I talked to her on the phone. She was 16, and I said, Xenia, you were so afraid. And the story on The Voice was that she hadn't even told her best friends that she sang. They found out she could sing when she showed up on The Voice. And I said, how does someone who's so afraid that they don't even tell their best friends that they want to sing wind up on a national television show? And she said, I decided I wanted to sing more than I wanted to be afraid. And it didn't stop me from being afraid, but it got me on that stage. And I just started crying on the phone with her. I thought, this is a 15-year-old teaching me this incredible lesson. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And I've heard many times, and it's certainly a major theme in the movie, but it continues to be in my life, is that, a lot of the stuff you go through as a teenager and midlife are very, very similar. You have to find a way to reinvent yourself. You have to find what am I going to do next? And when you're a mother or a parent, it's a very rewarding experience. It's very challenging, but it's very, very rewarding. And having little kids has this constant joy factor. There's a wonderful book called All Joy and No Fun that Jennifer Senior wrote. And, there's a lot of joy, and I think there is a lot of fun too, but more joy. And when they get to be teenagers, they're in a really challenging place where they need you more than ever, I think. They need you around, they need you available, they need you to listen, they need you to drive them. But you don't get quite the same reward back. They're not always hugging you and kissing you and telling you how much they love you. And so you find yourself still really needing to be this very involved parent, but also having all this creative leftover stuff that you got to find a place with, really at the same time they are. So you're both on this really in sync parallel journey when you have to make a big decision. What do we do next? Who are we going to be? And I love what Xenia said, you want to do this more than you're afraid, and the fear can be big. The fear can be really big.
I think that you guys all together in the making of the film modeled something extraordinary for both the musicians and all of the cast and crew. Quill's just one of many examples of participants who helped make Life Inside Out possible, from the director on down, who were having their first real experience making a film. And something about the collaboration between the women who visualized this possibility and then brought it into being seemed very rooted in a mission, really, to support the flowering of potential in the community that you drew around you to make that film possible. And I think it would be interesting to me to hear you speak to that a little bit, because it's as much your gifts as parents that you were doing that as homeschooling parents, but you threw it out there and did it for people you didn't even know, young people, adult people, and something about the commitment that you have to this vision of lifelong learning, of risk-taking, of bravery, of a courageous embrace of our own creativity. I mean, Jill, what you did as a director, Maggie, I know you were actor, you were writer, you were so many more things besides that. I mean, you guys really held the space for something incredible to happen for all the people who joined you in that production. I just want that to be said. And I would love to hear if you have anything to say about it, because certainly from my background in transformative leadership is rooted in systems theory, and the idea that a very small change in the self, of course, has this ripple effect, or the butterfly effect, and affects everything else that touches it. And I feel like that was very much in evidence in the set and in the subsequent experiences with the 20 film festivals that you've been to, and the kind of community support that continues to come your way long after the premiere. It's pretty impressive.
Well, I wanted to surround myself on the film with people that were good at their jobs, but more than that, Guido and I really thought we wanted to surround ourselves with people who wanted to be there, because it was more important that people were excited to be there and have that experience than people be experienced already when they showed up on the set. And our script supervisor, it was the first time she'd ever script supervised a feature. And like I said, many of the crew members, they were bouncing themselves up from one position to the next, including me. And I think that added to the energy and excitement, and a little bit of the chaos, and a little bit of the, sometimes not knowing what to do or how to do it or what sequence to do it in. But that was so far outweighed by the people just being so excited to be part of this. And yeah, I guess it was a learning experience for all of us.
And also, a lot of that continues because, when you make a traditional film with a studio, you have this little span of being involved. But in this movie, it never ends, from day one of writing till now. If you let a film like this, if you set it down, it's done. You have to keep carrying it and showing it and reaching out to people and going to festivals. But what makes that so rewarding is every time someone, thank you, Julie, for saying all that, every time someone at a festival writes to us or comes up to us and says, oh my gosh, you inspired me so much, I'm going to take back up my this, or I'm going to start doing this, or I can't wait to do this thing I've always wanted to do. The story of the movie has inspired them, and the story behind the scenes has inspired, and the fact that they take the time to tell us that has really made it what keeps us carrying it and trying to let more people see it, because it's really kind of taken on this life of what affected us in the story has affected other people, and that's really more than I could have ever hoped for. Really, that is quite far beyond my wildest dreams, how people have been touched by it. I thought we'd make a movie, but the fact that people were touched by it was great.
I sat in our first screening at our first film festival. I sat in the front row and I just started sobbing because I realized all those people were there, 150, 200 people at 10 o'clock on a Thursday morning there to watch our film. And Maggie's absolutely right. The response we've gotten back from audiences has just been so incredible. And I think that's helped me through some of the time, some of the exhaustion, and some of the, we are working hard. We've continued to work hard. It hasn't stopped. But I'm always re-energized by the audience response when I can sit in the theater with the audience and experience the film through their eyes, through their first time experiencing the film. So I'm very appreciative of that as well.
I've learned so much from this panel tonight. I mean, not just about the film, but I mean about the whole energy that went into it, about taking a risk, about, oh God, so much. You guys are teachers on so many levels. I'm beyond honored that you agreed to be a part of this little show. I'm so thrilled to be able to share with our audience what you've created, and hopefully it'll help, bring this film to more people into their living rooms, or if it's still in the theater, hopefully they'll get out and see it. I want to ask the panel, what is your highest vision for this film?
At this point, my vision is just as many people to see it as possible, and that people will feel seen and heard in this movie. It's a movie about real people. It's in a real house with a family that doesn't have much money, and nothing is spick and span, and nothing is rich or fancy. And it's just real people dealing with very real life issues. And I just hope people will see it and be touched and feel that their life has been represented finally on a screen, and that as many people will see it as possible.
Yeah, I absolutely second what Maggie said.
One of the things I love most about watching audiences watch Life Inside Out is seeing the expressions cross their faces, and you can hear everyone catching their breath as their heartstrings are tugged. And so, yeah, the more the better. And when I see people coming out of the theater after a screening, walking really on clouds, and having been so touched by it, I feel like there's a really powerful, long-term outreach that's happening through Life Inside Out. And so the more the better. And what's exciting is that whoever is in that theater, every person seems touched by it. And you hear different people, whether it's the fathers or the mothers or the kids, laughing or sighing all at different times throughout. And there's something about that kind of popcorn effect. And, may it go forth with that same kind of abundant energy.
And it's totally an empowering film. I'm going to qualify myself as it touches my life as a middle-aged woman. It's a wonderful story that I could relate to, and that to me was so important. I would love to get any closing remarks from the panel, and I'd also like for each panelist to share with us their website or any projects that are happening next, or anything that you'd like to share with us before we sign out. So why don't we actually just jump back over to Maggie?
I am going to sign off just because I'm going to go do a reading of another Friends movie, another middle-aged woman who's written a wonderful screenplay, and I'm going to go be part of her reading. So I'm excited about that. And I just like to say, I hope people will be inspired to do something that they love and spend more time with their kids and value what they do with their kids. And my son, I'm going to plug my son more than myself. My son is Phineas, has gone on. He was in the last 4 episodes of Glee, and he has a wonderful band called the Slightlies that people can find. Their music is all through the movie. So, like the mother in the movie, in many ways, my life, aside from making a living as an actor, it's still very much about my children and nurturing them. I have a daughter too, Billy, who's 13. So, just go out and enjoy your life, enjoy your children. And thanks for having us.
Thank you, Maggie. I'm so thrilled to meet you. Bye, and good luck on your.
Thank you.
And why don't we jump on over to you, Julie?
Thanks so much, you guys. This has really been a pleasure. My website is inthefamilyway.org. It's a very quiet little organization that occasionally funds really cool things. So whatever we're doing can be found there. There's a free online divination program there for a specialized I Ching that I helped develop specifically for families. And like Maggie, I'm a mother first. My son Quill was delighted to be part of Life Inside Out. He's a filmmaker since he was a young child. his company is Aqua Productions, and he's in LA now and available. So I look forward to continuing to support Jill and Maggie and the Life Inside Out team, and certainly Quill and his future endeavors as a filmmaker in LA.
And I love your project. I had a chance to take a look at what you're working on, and I'll talk to you later about being a panelist on a future show, because I think the work you're doing is incredible. And thank you so much for being a part of this panel and giving such incredible insight. And let's jump on over to the film's director. Looks like you've been joined. Jill, go ahead and share any closing remarks and introduce your beautiful daughter, who I've known since you were a baby. And share with us any news or anything that you're working on and information about the DVD.
Yeah, I grabbed Bella to be part of the last few minutes of the episode. Right now, we're finishing up getting this DVD out to the public. It is you can pre-order Life Inside Out on Amazon. If you go into movies and TV, Life Inside Out, you can pre-order it. It'll be available to purchase the DVD on April 21st on Amazon Overstock.com. Hi, Maru. Amazon Overstock.com. I think it should be in Target stores. So definitely go out and purchase it. If you have Netflix DVDs, if you subscribe to Netflix DVDs, you can rent the DVDs on Netflix starting on April 21st. So add it to your queue. Current projects, I'm going back to my job on season 4 at Switched at Birth, which is an ABC family show. I'm one of the editors on the show, so I'm very excited to go back there. And looking forward to writing and directing a new project in the coming year or two. One more thing, sorry. Our website is lifeinsideoutthemovie.com, where you can find all this information about screenings at film festivals and the DVD, etc.
Wonderful, and thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this panel and sharing your creative work with our audience. I'm so thrilled to reconnect with you again. Before we sign out, I wanted to give you a quick preview of what's coming up in next week's show. Next week, we'll be exploring road schooling with 3 panelists representing Europe, Australia, and the US. World schooling is a growing trend in which families pack up their belongings and hit the road and take the trip of a lifetime. Rather than teaching what is dictated by textbooks or curriculum, many families teach their children based on where the road takes them. Road schooling follows a more hands-on approach to learning. Families use the landmarks and attractions available and culture as a means for educational exploration. Road schoolers traditionally travel in some kind of portable home, granting the freedom to travel while always having a base. Join us for The Love of Learning, Voices of the Alternative Education Movement, episode number 11 next week on April 13th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And with that, we're back. So thank you, everybody. Wherever you are, whatever you do, continue doing it always.
For the love of learning.
We're out. That's a wrap.